She just wanted to make her son happy for Halloween, not fall for the man next door. But sometimes love shows up wrapped in orange lights and carved pumpkins. It all started with a Halloween contest, like every other October. The town of Maple Hollow was alive again. Porches were dressed in orange lights, hay bales lined the sidewalks, and the smell of cinnamon drifted from every bakery. For most people, it was the happiest season of the year. For Elizabeth Harper, it was just another reminder of how much her life had changed. She stood by her kitchen window, watching her son, Sam, run through the yard with a plastic sword in his hand. At 10 years old, he had more energy than the autumn wind itself. He leaped into piles of leaves, laughing, while Elizabeth tried to shake off the tiredness that came from juggling work, bills, and single motherhood. "Mom," Sam called out, waving a bright orange flyer. "Guess what? The town's having a haunted house contest this year." Elizabeth smiled faintly. "That sounds exciting." "I already signed us up," he said proudly. Her eyes widened. "You did what?" Sam grinned, that mischievous spark lighting up his face. "It's gonna be awesome! You're great with decorations, and I can do the scary sounds. Please, Mom, let's do it." Elizabeth set down her coffee mug and laughed. He was impossible to say no to. "All right," she said, giving in, "but nothing too spooky, okay?" "Deal!" Sam shouted, running off to grab paper and crayons for planning. Later that evening, as she scrolled through the town's community page, Elizabeth spotted a list of the contest participants. Her smile froze when she saw one familiar name, Noah Reed. Of course. He was her next-door neighbor, the quiet carpenter who'd moved back to Maple Hollow last spring with his daughter, Maddie. Noah had a calm, thoughtful way about him, and Sam adored Maddie from the moment they met. Still, Elizabeth hadn't expected to be competing with him. The next morning, she stepped out onto her porch and found an orange paper note tucked under her welcome mat. It was shaped like a pumpkin and written in careful handwriting. "Hey, neighbor, looks like we're rivals this Halloween. May the best haunted house win. Noah." Elizabeth chuckled, shaking her head. "Rivals, huh? We'll see about that." Soon the neighborhood buzzed with preparation. Sam gathered cardboard, fake cobwebs, and old sheets for ghosts. Elizabeth planned to paint pumpkins and create spooky window silhouettes. Every evening she could hear the sound of hammering and laughter from Noah's yard. One afternoon, as Elizabeth tried to hang a string of lights on her porch, her ladder began to wobble. "Whoa there," a voice called. Strong hands steadied the ladder. It was Noah, smiling up at her. "Wouldn't want you falling before the big day." Elizabeth climbed down carefully, brushing a leaf from her hair. "Thanks, I was just testing my balance." "Looked more like testing gravity," he teased. She laughed. A real laugh, one she hadn't heard from herself in a while. "Well, I'll survive. Don't think you can win by knocking out the competition." "Wouldn't dream of it," he said with a grin. That night, both houses glowed side by side. His porch lit with orange lanterns, hers shining with hand-painted pumpkins. Sam and Maddie ran between yards, giggling, comparing whose decorations were scarier. Elizabeth leaned on her porch railing, watching the kids, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time, a little spark of excitement, maybe even happiness. As Sam came running up the steps, he shouted, "Mom, Maddie says her dad's haunted house is going to have a fog machine. We can't lose." Elizabeth smiled. "Then we'll make ours the best in town." She didn't know it yet, but this Halloween wouldn't just bring pumpkins and decorations. It would bring something far more unexpected, something that might just change both of their lives.
By the next weekend, Maple Hollow was buzzing with Halloween excitement. The leaves had turned deep orange, the air smelled like apple pie, and everyone was working on their haunted houses for the big contest. In the Harper household, things were messy. Elizabeth stood in her living room, surrounded by plastic spiders, glue sticks, and fake cobwebs. Sam was sitting cross-legged on the floor, carefully painting a cardboard tombstone that said, "Here lies Mr. Boring." "Sam," Elizabeth said, trying not to laugh. "Why that name?" He grinned. "Because our house won't be boring." She smiled. Fair point. Still, it was hard work. Between her job at the local diner and keeping up with Sam's endless ideas, Elizabeth was starting to realize how much effort this contest would take. That afternoon, while she was outside spray painting fake bats, a familiar voice called from next door. "Need an extra pair of hands?" It was Noah, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, holding a toolbox. His daughter Maddie peeked out from behind him with a shy smile. Elizabeth hesitated, then smiled back. "Sure, as long as you're not here to spy on the competition." "Promise," he said with a grin. "Just neighbors helping neighbors." Soon, the two kids were running around the yard, chasing each other with glow sticks, while Noah helped Elizabeth hang lights from the porch. "So," he said as he steadied the ladder, "how's your haunted house coming along?" "Let's just say, it's a work in progress," she replied, tightening a string of orange bulbs. "Sam's got a lot of big ideas." "Ah," Noah nodded. "Same here. Maddie wants our house to have a talking skeleton and a fog machine. I told her we're not running a movie set." Elizabeth laughed. "Maybe we should combine forces instead of trying to outspook each other." He paused, looking up at her. "You serious?" She shrugged, smiling. "Why not? The kids already play together every day. We could build one amazing haunted house, and it might actually be fun." Before Noah could answer, Sam and Maddie ran over, eyes wide. "Did you say team up?" Sam asked. Maddie clasped her hands. "Please, Dad, we could make it the best one ever." Noah looked at Elizabeth, then at the kids, both bouncing with excitement. Finally, he sighed and grinned. "All right, but only if your mom agrees." Elizabeth pretended thinking hard. Fine, but only if I get to be in charge of the creative design." "Deal," said Noah, offering his hand. They shook on it, and just like that, the Pumpkin Pact was born. Over the next few days, their yards transformed. Noah built wooden arches and fences, while Elizabeth painted spooky murals. Sam and Maddie filled the front yard with carved pumpkins and glowing lanterns. At night, the two families sat around cups of hot cocoa, laughing and planning the final touches. One evening, Noah noticed Elizabeth watching him as she painted a ghost on the fence. "What?" she asked, smiling without looking up. He shrugged. "Just thinking. It's been a while since I've seen anyone enjoy Halloween this much." Elizabeth paused, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Honestly, I forgot how fun it could be." Their eyes met for a moment, quiet, easy, and warm. Then Sam's voice broke the silence. "Mom, Maddie says we should put spooky music by the mailbox." Elizabeth laughed. "Good idea. Go help Noah set it up." As the night went on, laughter echoed down Birchwood Lane. Neighbors slowed down to watch the two families working side by side, their yards glowing in the amber light. By the time the moon rose high, the haunted house was nearly finished. Not just scary, but full of charm, creativity, and a sense of togetherness that Elizabeth hadn't felt in years. She looked at Noah and smiled softly. "You know," she said, "this might actually be the best Halloween yet." And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed it. By the middle of October, the Harper Reed haunted house was the talk of Maple Hollow. Neighbors stopped on their evening walks to admire the glowing pumpkins, the twinkling fairy lights, and the clever decorations that stretched from Elizabeth's porch to Noah's fence. It wasn't the scariest display in town, but it had heart, and everyone could feel it. That Saturday, Elizabeth was in the yard, brushing glitter onto a paper moon, while Sam and Maddie tested the fog machine. The mist rolled across the grass, catching the sunset light. It looked magical. "Perfect," Elizabeth said, smiling. "It's like a dream." "Or a low-budget movie set," Noah teased from behind her. She turned, laughing. "Oh, come on. You have to admit it looks good." He nodded. "It looks amazing, actually. You've got a real eye for this stuff." Elizabeth felt a little warmth rise to her cheeks. Guess all those years of helping with school plays finally paid off. They worked side by side as the sky deepened to orange and pink. Noah built the small archway over the walkway, while Elizabeth painted bats on the steps. Every so often their hands brushed, just enough to make her heart skip. As night settled in, the kids begged to roast marshmallows. So Noah lit the fire pit between their yards, and soon the four of them sat together, wrapped in blankets, sticky-fingered and happy. Maddie leaned against her dad. "This is the best Halloween ever." Sam nodded. "Yeah, I didn't know decorating could be this fun." Elizabeth smiled softly at them. "Sometimes it's not about the decorations, kiddo. It's about who you do it with." Noah's eyes met hers across the firelight, quiet and knowing. After the kids went inside to watch a movie, Elizabeth stayed behind to clean up. The fire had dimmed to glowing embers, and crickets sang in the grass. She was packing up the paintbrushes when Noah came back out, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Peace offering," he said. She took the mug, smiling. "Didn't know we were at war." "Just in case," he said with a shrug. "You never know when competition gets fierce." They laughed softly, standing under the hanging lights. For a while they just talked about small things: school projects, town gossip, their kids' favorite costumes from past years. Then Noah's voice grew quieter. "You know," he said, staring into his cup, "I wasn't sure about moving back here. After the divorce, I thought Maple Hollow would just remind me of everything I messed up." Elizabeth listened, her voice gentle. "Sometimes starting over isn't about running from something. It's about remembering who you were before everything got heavy." He looked up at her, eyes thoughtful. "That's exactly what I needed to hear." They stood there for a moment, the silence comfortable. The air smelled of wood smoke and pumpkin spice, and the faint sound of laughter drifted from the house. Then Elizabeth smiled faintly. "You know, you're not so bad for a rival." "Neither are you, though I think we both know who's going to win this contest." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really?" "Absolutely," he said, a grin tugging at his lips. "Team Pumpkin Pact." Elizabeth laughed, shaking her head. "I'll drink to that." They clinked their mugs together, and for a second, under the warm glow of the porch lights, the world felt simple again, safe, soft, and full of promise. As she went back inside later that night, Elizabeth paused at the door and glanced toward Noah's house. His lights were still on, casting a golden glow through the window. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone.
The week before Halloween arrived with the kind of crisp air that made your cheeks sting and your heart feel light. Maple Hollow was ready. Porches sparkled with orange lights, kids tested their costumes, and every window glowed with candle-lit pumpkins. Elizabeth and Noah's haunted house was almost finished. They'd turned their yards into a whimsical mix of spooky and sweet. A foggy graveyard lined with carved pumpkins, a glowing moan mural, and paper ghosts that danced whenever the wind blew. It wasn't terrifying, it was charming, just like everyone who helped make it. "Tomorrow we do the final test run," Noah said one afternoon, hammering the last nail into a wooden sign that read, "Enter if you dare." Sam and Maddie cheered, while Elizabeth stepped back to admire the view. "I can't believe we actually pulled this off. It looks perfect." Noah smiled. "You did most of it." She nudged him. "We did it together." Just as the moment began to settle into something soft, the wind picked up, a strong, cold gust that scattered leaves and rattled the fence. Elizabeth frowned. "That's not a good sign." Noah glanced at the sky. Clouds were rolling in fast, dark and heavy. Looks like a storm's coming. They barely made it inside before the rain began, a wild, pounding storm that shook the windows and sent lightning flashing across the sky. From her living room, Elizabeth could see their hard work being torn apart. The fake tombstones toppled, the lights flickered out, a huge gust ripped half of the decorations right off the porch. Sam gasped, "Mom, the ghosts are flying away!" She felt a lump in her throat. "It's okay, honey. We'll fix it." But deep down, she wasn't sure they could. The rain didn't stop all night. By morning, the once beautiful haunted house was a soggy mess. The fog machine had drowned, the cardboard props were ruined, and the painted decorations ran with streaks of color. Elizabeth stood in the yard, clutching her jacket tight. The cold drizzle soaked her hair as she whispered, "It's all gone." Noah walked over from his side, his own decorations just as ruined. "Hey," he said softly, "it's not over yet." She shook her head. "The contest's tomorrow, Noah. We don't have time to redo everything." "We'll find a way," he said gently. "We always do." But Elizabeth just stared at the muddy ground. "I don't know if I can do this." For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain pattered softly, and the air smelled of wet leaves and loss. Then behind them, a small voice broke the silence. "Mom?" It was Sam, holding Maddie's hand. "We can fix it, right, Dad?" Noah smiled faintly. "Yeah, right." Elizabeth looked at the kids, their little faces filled with hope, and felt her heart tug. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was scared of failing again, but she couldn't let them see her give up. She took a deep breath. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's do this." By afternoon, neighbors started showing up one by one. Mrs. Turner brought extra lights. The town baker dropped off hot cocoa. Even the mayor stopped by with spare decorations. Word had spread, and suddenly, it wasn't just their haunted house anymore. It was Maple Hollow's. The whole community pitched in as the sun broke through the clouds. Laughter and music filled the air again, and slowly, piece by piece, the haunted house came back to life. As the last pumpkin light flickered on, Elizabeth turned to Noah, her eyes shining. "I almost gave up," she said softly. "Good thing you didn't." And when their hands brushed, muddy, cold, and tired, neither of them pulled them away.
Finally, Halloween morning arrived with sunshine and the smell of caramel in the air. Maple Hollow had never looked more alive. Every porch glittered with lights. Kids in costumes ran down the sidewalks, and laughter echoed through the streets. Elizabeth stood in the yard, hands on her hips, staring at the rebuilt haunted house. It was even better than before. Pumpkins lined the walkway, flickering with gentle orange light. The paper ghosts swayed from the trees, and a new wooden arch stretched between her porches and Noah's, carved with the words, "Welcome to the Pumpkin Pact." "Ready, Mom?" Sam called, running out in his skeleton costume. Maddie followed along, dressed as a tiny vampire, her cape fluttering behind her. Elizabeth smiled. "Ready as I'll ever be." Noah stepped onto the porch, straightening his flannel shirt, a smudge of black paint still on his cheek. "The mayor's starting the parade in an hour," he said. "They'll come by to judge right after." Sam's eyes gleamed. "We're totally gonna win." Elizabeth laughed. "Let's just have fun, okay? That's the point." Still, her heart beat faster. After everything, the storm, the late nights, the laughter, this moment felt bigger than just a contest. It felt like a new beginning. As the afternoon sun dipped low, the parade music started. Drums, laughter, the sound of children's cheers filled the air. The mayor's float rolled down Birchwood Lane, followed by a trail of kids tossing candy. When the parade reached their street, the crowd slowed to admire the Harper Reed haunted house. The lights shimmered, the fog machine puffed out soft white mist, and spooky sound effects played from hidden speakers. But what truly made people stop wasn't fear.
It was the feeling. There was something special in the way every decoration seemed to tell a story. The smiling pumpkins, the gentle ghosts, the tiny painted signs that said, "Welcome, friends." It wasn't scary. It was magical. The mayor climbed the steps, eyes wide. "This is incredible," she said. "You two really brought the spirit of Halloween to life." Elizabeth glanced at Noah, who gave a modest shrug. "Couldn't have done it without our team." The mayor smiled. "Well, in that case," she raised her voice for everyone to hear, "this year's Best Spirit Award goes to the Pumpkin Pact." Cheers erupted. Sam and Maddie jumped up and down, hugging each other. Elizabeth laughed, overwhelmed, and Noah grinned so wide she thought his face might split. As people crowded around to take pictures, Elizabeth felt something warm brush her hand. Noah's fingers, tentative but steady. She didn't pull away. They stood side by side, watching the kids hand out candy, the sun sinking behind the golden trees. The air was cool, full of wood smoke and laughter. "You know," Noah said quietly, "I think this might be my favorite Halloween ever." Elizabeth looked up at him. "Mine too." He smiled, his voice low. "I'm glad we did this together." For a moment, the noise of the parade faded. Just the two of them standing in the soft glow of the lanterns. Then Sam ran over, breathless. "Mom, Maddie says we should make this a tradition." Elizabeth laughed, brushing a leaf from his hair. "I think that's a great idea." Noah grinned. "Guess we'll be neighbors in more ways than one." The look they shared said the rest. A promise, quiet and new. As the parade lights drifted away down the street, Elizabeth glanced back at their house. The pumpkins flickered, the ghosts swayed, and for the first time in a long while, her heart felt full. Maybe, she thought, Halloween wasn't about tricks or scares. Maybe it was about second chances and the kind of magic that stays long after the candles burn out.
A whole year had passed since the Halloween that changed everything. Maple Hollow was glowing again. The same orange lights, the same laughter of children racing down the sidewalks, and that same crisp scent of cinnamon and bonfires in the air. But this year, things felt a little different. Elizabeth stepped out onto her porch, a mug of cider warming her hands. The yard looked just as beautiful as before, maybe even better. The archway from last year had been rebuilt, now painted gold, with tiny fairy lights twinkling across it. A wooden sign hung at the center. The Pumpkin Pact, Year 2. Sam darted past her in his werewolf costume, followed closely by Maddie, who wore a sparkly witch hat. "Mom, we're going to the pumpkin patch with Dad. Can we pick the biggest one this year?" She laughed. "Only if you can carry it." Noah appeared behind the kids, holding 2 caramel apples and wearing that same easy grin that made her chest warm. "Don't worry, I'll handle the heavy lifting." "Like you did last year," she teased. "I remember who dropped the pumpkin on their shoe." He laughed. "I was testing its weight distribution." "Uh-huh, sure." It had been a year of small miracles. Dinners together, game nights, helping the kids with school projects, long talks that stretched past midnight. What started as a friendly, neighborly partnership had turned into something real, something steady, honest, and bright. When Noah asked her to go official that summer, he didn't use fancy words. He just looked at her one evening as they painted the porch railings and said, "Elizabeth, this feels like home." And somehow, that was enough. Now, as the kids ran off toward the car, Elizabeth looked around at their shared yard, the mingled decorations, the laughter spilling from both porches. 2 families, 1 heartbeat. She walked down the steps to join Noah, her scarf fluttering in the breeze. "You realize," she said, smiling up at him, If we win again this year, the town's never going to let us quit." He chuckled. "That's fine by me. I like tradition. Even if it means carving 40 pumpkins?" He raised an eyebrow. 40? You mean 41? They both laughed. The kids' voices drifted back through the air, happy, loud, and alive. Elizabeth took a deep breath, the moment wrapping around her like a blanket. "Do you ever think about how it started?" she asked quietly. "One little contest, and everything changed." Noah looked at her, eyes warm. "Guess that's what happens when you let a little magic back in." He reached out, brushing a leaf from her hair. The touch was soft, familiar. "Ready for another round of pumpkin-packed glory?" Elizabeth smiled. "With you? Always." The sun began to set, painting the sky gold and pink. The lantern lights flickered on, and the pumpkins glowed like tiny lanterns in the twilight. As they stood together, the kids running ahead, Elizabeth felt something gentle and certain settle in her chest. Maybe life wasn't about finding perfection. Maybe it was about finding the people who made ordinary days feel like home. She looked at Noah, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe love isn't about ghosts from the past. It's about finding someone who still believes in the magic of tomorrow." Noah smiled, leaning closer. "Then here's to tomorrow." They walked hand in hand down the lantern-lit path, the pumpkins glowing softly behind them, a promise that every October and every season after would be theirs to share. Thank you for staying to the end. Hope you enjoyed the story. Kindly give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more breathtaking stories.